The Blackstone Endless Side Quests. Loading complete.
Hello, and welcome to the Blackstone. As always, I have my wonderful co-host Kimmer. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Sorry for not being available for the last couple weeks. Life kind of kicked us both in the crotch and decided not to let us play video games or watch anime, as far as I'm concerned. So,
Yes, it did.
so we were planning on starting up every week after the last cast, and that just went to shit. So, just goes to show that life hits all of us.
And it's one of those things where we'll get back on track because we're not giving up. We're here recording another episode, and hopefully we can get some backlogged episodes done, and that way we can catch back up. But, like I said, we're here. We're going to talk. We're going to have some fun and continue the podcasts.
For sure. Yeah, no, I've missed this. It's been a hot minute for sure. So a lot has happened. I don't know. I say we start off in the gaming space today, even though, your anime background, I've got my gaming background, and then I know you can't see it right now, but I have a live wallpaper of Coven Morgana in the background for the podcast, which will be kind of a neat thing. Let me just full screen here. Everything's off center. There we go. Everything's back to normal. So, gaming space. What have you been up to game wise? Have you been following anything? I know it's been a bit since we talked.
Yeah, actually, our favorite little subject, Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth just got announced, and it'll be coming to PlayStation next year. That is super exciting. We finally get the part 2 for part 1, kind of part. I don't know. It's the way they're releasing it has been kind of weird, but we finally get the full sequel, I guess, that we've been wanting. That's for the remastered, kind of.
Well, I mean, originally they said it was going to be 3 parts.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of is and kind of isn't. But at the same time, too, like the part of me that's waiting for the whole thing to come out, just because I only want to pay for it once, I don't want to pay 3 AAA prices for what's essentially one game. And especially as I grew up on I didn't grow up on Final Fantasy VII. I was in high school when that came out, but I already know what's going to happen. And yes, they're probably doing a little bit of rewrites and stuff, and yes, it looks pretty, but I'm a PC gamer. I've got to wait another year after the initial release anyway. Because Squaresoft, for some reason, doesn't do them in tandem. They do the PlayStation one first, and then they go and do the PC port. I mean, it ends up working better because you do have more stability, and the game looks pretty for all the computer stats and everything like that. However, you would think that they'd be working in tandem.
Yeah, and it's I haven't beat the first one yet, just because I wanted to have them all kind of be out, so then I can just play them all, like you were kind of saying.
You'll be my age when that happens.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while. Unfortunately, it's just because they have so many other projects that they're also working on,
Sure.
And it just, maybe they should kind of take a step back, maybe work on 1 or 2 projects at a time, because then because we get all these trailers, all these announcements, and then it's like 6 or 7 years from now.
Yep.
And it's like I would rather have an announcement and then it'd be like a year or 2. Like 2 is even kind of pushing it, you know what I mean? Like if we're getting an announcement like, oh, this game is dropping, here's a trailer, it's coming out next year. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Well, see the sad part is, and a lot of people forget this, is when they drop the trailers, it's not for the fans.
Oh, it's for the media companies.
No, it's for the investors. It's for their stocks to show what they're doing, to show the hype and excitement so that their stocks go up, so they have revenue while they're in game development.
Oh, for more budget.
Well, no, it's just so that they can stay afloat when they have no games on sale right now.
True. And with the current, also with the writer's strike, I heard that the actors and stuff like that, if you haven't, Kevin told me on the latest podcast, they're trying to get the voice actors for the games to hold out too. Well,
it depends on the licensing, and there's a whole bunch of logistics that are a part of it. But the video game world can definitely be affected by this, and the only saving grace is that they're not a part of the Major Motion Picture Association or whatever the governing body is of that, because most of the studios, like Warner Brothers, said we'd rather lose $45 million giving them what they want rather than losing $400 million holding out. But because there are some
Right.
staunch board members who just refuse to budge, even big companies like Warner Brothers, because of their alliances and all the legalities and shit, they have to stay in it. But with the video game companies, it ends up becoming, there's no sort of governing body, is my understanding. I could be wrong, but like each studio pays wages, and a lot of the studios are like, no, if I want Jennifer Hale, who by the way is the fucking queen of video games, if I want Jennifer Hale, I will pay, you know, the union rates
Right.
because I know I'm getting quality. I mean, this is the woman who took over Bayonetta, faced backlash, and then everybody found out the original voice actress was being a bit of a bitch and ended up getting herself blacklisted from the community, as far as I can tell, and took over the role of Bayonetta. And everybody I've spoken to has no problems with her being Bayonetta in Bayonetta 3. Right? And that's a very iconic character to be.
It is a very iconic character. Even if you don't like know the games, you've still
Exactly.
heard the name before.
Right. And Jennifer Hale has been around for so long. Like she has I think she still has the Guinness record for most voice acting credits in video games.
Wow, that's impressive.
Last I heard, it was like over 900 credits or something. She's the
Jeez, that's
official voice
impressive.
of Cinderella for Disney. Like, and you know, like my favorite game of hers, well, one of my favorites is Mass Effect. She plays FemShep.
Oh, she does?
Yeah.
Mass Effect's a good game. That's a good series.
Like so, but when it comes to voice casting in video games, you got to have it right. One of the reasons why Mass Effect was so successful is because the voice acting and the writing of the game are phenomenal. Yeah,
Super
things
good.
are glitchy. Shepard walks like a robot. You know, there's a lot of things that could be improved. There always is. But when I first played Mass Effect, Mark Mir, who plays just regular Shepard, he sounds like he's a soldier. He sounds right for the role. The reason I prefer FemShep, not only just because I love Jennifer Hale, I'm a fanboy. I'm not gonna lie, but I've got her signature up on my wall over there. Her and Ali Hillis, Shepard and Liara. But she brings a different quality. Like she has like the soldier's sound, but she also brings like a survivor's vibe to it. Like she's seen a lot of shit before you even get to know her. And she has kind of this she's not your commander and your best friend. She's your best friend commander, if that makes any kind of sense.
Yes.
So with going back to the strike, if the video game studios can't hire these actors, you lose that quality. So one of the things I know, especially if you go to any franchises like Borderlands, Diablo, which just came out, you know, any of the Bethesda games, which we'll get to in a minute here, like if you lose those quality voice actors, you lose that immersion. Ever since voices were introduced in a game, they're always trying to make things immersive. I've played a lot of really shitty games that have amazing voice actors.
Amazing voice acting.
And so it's like, okay, I'll play the game because I'm enjoying the voice acting. Or, you know, like I've also played games that have no voice acting at all, and they're just really crappy looking, but the writing is so good, right?
The story is phenomenal.
Exactly. So, I mean, if you take out one of those core elements that immerses us as gamers into it, it's really hard. And I don't think, particularly with how much money the movie studios are losing, that the video game studios can afford to lose that. Maybe if you're EA, maybe.
Maybe. Because everything's pay to win over there.
Well, no, everything's paid by FIFA.
Oh, true. But like the standing joke behind EA is that everything is behind a paywall.
Yeah,
which is funny.
It is funny. I am glad that a lot of the governments around the world are kicking back and saying, you know, like, no, you want to sell stuff, that's fine, but you can't gamble. You know, get rid of that. You have to buy. It can only be cosmetic only. You know, because gamers hate fucking pay to win, which is exactly what FIFA is. There's a player I was reading about. I don't know if he still plays. I'm assuming he probably does. But for 7 years, he was in like the top 10 of the world FIFA players because he was dropping 11 grand on the game a year.
Wow.
Just to buy all the best players and get the best trades and all these things. Like I haven't played a FIFA game since like the early 90s when it was still on the Super Nintendo. So I'm way removed from that. But the point is there are people who will pay for it. And I'm okay with that. If you want to pay to have your best gaming experience, that's great. If you are paying against other people to win, that is just a big no-no, because it discourages any hard work or any of that shit. You want to pay for mounts in World of Warcraft? Fine. You want to pay to have all the latest gear when somebody's been playing for 10 years and they've been farming forever and paying their dues? Fuck that shit.
No,
right?
you have to grind for that shit.
Yeah. Or you make it so that, once you've achieved a certain thing, it's the equivalent of paying for something. So the players who are actually grinding are getting rewarded. That's the only thing I can see, and that's a really hard balance. And I don't envy game devs who, everyone's like, oh, this game isn't balanced. Dude, do you have any idea how much math and how much resources and how much insight you need to have to properly balance a game? And then you might be the one person who thinks the game's not balanced.
No, seriously. There's always going to be someone that doesn't think the game isn't balanced or anything like that.
Oh, exactly.
But no, I agree with that. There needs to be some type of in return for the pay to win, but you just can't.
Exactly. Fun little anecdote. I saw a video this week of Call of Duty. I think it was Call of Duty. The developers trolling everybody. Oh, your game sucks. It's so slow. This is bullshit. So they went in and they artificially made the ping 50 less than what it actually was. They just displayed 50 less than what it was. And it's artificial. It's just a number on the screen. It's not actually what your ping is. And all of a sudden everyone's like, oh my God, the game is so much faster, so much better. Thank you for fixing the problem. And he's like, we didn't do anything. So people are complaining just for the sake of complaining.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do that a lot.
It's one of those things, like a lot of the pro players in League, oh, we hate the high ping. Like my ping is 59 on average from League.
Yes.
And in Korea, it's like 5. But the players are like, oh, we're complaining about that. That I can understand. These are guys who play the game so much that they can do, the animation canceling and like split second decisions and stuff like that. They notice it. I don't. As a gamer, I can tell when my monitor is at 165 hertz. My wife, who doesn't play video games, no clue. As long as the picture looks good. Could be 60 hertz. As long as the
picture looks good.
Yep.
As long as the graphics look good.
Exactly. Which kind of brings me to my next point, circling all the way back to the developers. So Bethesda released Starfield. And that game's been kind of interesting. I'm not going to touch on the whole gender debacle because that's just a stupid reason to hate the game.
Right.
Whatever. I love inclusivity. I love everyone wanting to be equal. I'm not going to argue with anybody on that. You have a problem with that, then there's a problem with you. Because it really has 100%. Nothing to do with you.
Nope.
However, Bethesda. What's your stance on Bethesda?
I don't know if there's a right answer.
Well, there isn't. I'm always curious to where people see it because they are a premier AAA title publisher.
I don't know. I know they've fallen off a lot, but if I'm not mistaken, didn't they get acquired by a bigger company, or didn't that fall out? I remember there being talks of Bethesda getting bought out by a company a couple of years ago. Here, let me look it up real quick.
I remember, and I don't know if the acquisition went through. It hasn't changed the studio at all, if they did. So while you're looking that up, I will literally give you my take on Bethesda. They're 75% awesome. And what I mean by that is their games are awesome, but they're 75% complete when they release them. Now, apparently Starfield is a more solid release, but apparently it is still really buggy. And any game company that releases a game early and then has the modding community fix the game, and then they turn around and shame the modding community for ruining their game, is kind of a weird stance. Especially when they embrace the modders. I remember when Skyrim Special Edition came out, they're like, oh, great, it looks like Skyrim 2014 by modders. And I'm like, oh, gosh, really? But when it comes to Starfield, I like... So let's backtrack a bit. Let's do the Fallout series for a quick second. The Fallout series has a solid premise. I'm not a fan of the storyline. Come hate me if you want. I'm just not. You have the Elder Scrolls series. A lot of them have really good stories or really good premises, sometimes both, aka Skyrim, which is hailed as one of the best games of all time. I think even filthy casuals have played Skyrim, even if it's only for a couple of hours.
Seriously.
But the problem I had with Fallout 4 specifically was the storyline pretty mediocre. The whole building situation and the way that you put together your compound is fucking terrible. The whole build system is just, it's brutal. I hate it. It's one of the reasons why I dropped Fallout 4. So I will openly admit I've not played Starfield, so I don't have any criticisms of it. And I see all these people building, ships. Somebody recreated the destroyer from StarCraft, and another guy created a ship that's just basically a giant ladder. It takes like 20 minutes to get across the ship. So you can do neat things, and I appreciate that. I really do. I really hope that they have learned from the past and that their build system is better. I have not looked into it. But the problem I have with Bethesda is they always have a really great product, and it seems like when they get to the finish line, they rush. And my take on it is I'm not paying $80, $90 for a game that's going to take 2 years to feel good after it comes out.
No, seriously.
So if you're a huge fan of Bethesda, by all means, buy your games. I'm never going to stop anybody from buying their games. The reason I don't have Starfield is that. And that's a Bethesda issue, not a game issue. So that's my take on the studio.
I know Starfield, like there's been a lot of positives. I personally haven't played it yet, so I don't have an opinion on it yet. I will say I've watched my buddy play a fair amount, and it does look fun. It does look interesting enough for me to possibly go into it. But yeah, I like my games fully complete.
Yep.
And when there's a lot of bugs and crashes and you can't launch the game sometimes and stuff like that, it deters it. You want your money back.
Exactly.
You're paying money for a game that you should be able to play. If you can't even launch the game or play it for longer than 30 minutes without it crashing or a bug happening or a glitch or something, it just ruins your experience.
And that's one of the reasons why I loved Blizzard Entertainment. They never released a game that didn't work properly, except their server issues, which is understandable because server issues are hard to narrow down when you do a little beta test, and then all of a sudden you have 15 million people log in at the same time.
Right.
It's like, should they have gone on with Diablo 3 as long as they did with all the server issues? No. But they always released a polished game, which I loved. Now they're taking the Activision model of, like Diablo 4, like you could buy your battle passes, you can buy gear and stuff. That doesn't make sense to me. If I'm paying for in-game content like that, why am I paying $90 to $130 for the game itself? For the base game, right? Yeah. Lower the price or make it free like you did with Overwatch 2.
That and before I forget, Microsoft did buy them in I think 2020 or 2021. Microsoft bought them. Just wanted to get that just so we didn't forget. But yeah, as soon as you said it, I was like, that's right, they did, because it was the same time that they started the Blizzard Activision buyout. And I really hope Microsoft does it, because Bobby Kotick needs to be out of the fucking gaming industry. That guy is a fucking plague. And I don't care if the games are awesome. That man needs to just fucking go. He's the president of Blizzard, and he refuses to step down even after all of the allegations, all of the poor things. Like if you look at the Blizzard heads now, like the department heads, none of them are the original heads from when Blizzard was just Blizzard. They're all gone because they refuse to work for this guy and Activision. In addition to, I think the only department, actually, no, I lied. I think there's one department head, and she's the department of voice talent. She's the one who does all the voice actors and stuff like that. She's fucking hilarious. If you watch any of the BlizzCon videos, she's always in them. But for the most part, like all of the devs are gone. Most of the heads are gone. Like Jeff Kaplan, who is the head of Overwatch, he's gone. And literally all gone. After he left, that's when Overwatch really, like, you could tell that they suffered huge from it. Mm-hmm.
But going back to Bethesda, one of the things I kind of like about what they try to do is they do try to give you an immersion. Like if you play any Bethesda game, even the old like Morrowind and all those kinds of stuff, like the older Elder Scrolls,
Mm-hmm.
you can still immerse yourself in them, unless you're a graphics snob, in which case you'll never be happy because they were done 20 plus years ago. But they do try immersive games, and a lot of the things that I find with most current developers, and this is why I find Bethesda kind of an interesting case study, is they still try to make games where you want to sit down and play for 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 hours straight, as opposed to competitive games where you want to play for 8 hours straight because you love the game, but the people make it suck.
Right.
Or the other games, that was like, oh, this is just a cash grab because it's the same game that it was last year, except we have a shiny new sticker on it.
AKA Madden, 2K, PGA, any sports
FIFA.
game.
Yep.
Any racing game.
Any of the wrestling games. Yep. Not that they aren't fun. I mean, don't fix it if it ain't broke, but you don't need to release one every single year.
No.
Especially if it's going to be the same game. Say what you will about like the Dragon Ball games. At least they're updating
Dragon Ball games. Yeah.
Now the Naruto games, on the other hand, was exactly that. Same engine, new game. Oh, we added more of the story we didn't have in the last one, but you still have to play through the shit you already played through 6 times.
Which is bullshit, but
yep.
At least you got new content.
Yeah, which you could just literally make a DLC.
Literally could have just made DLC instead of just making base games, more base games. But I just lost my train of thought for a second.
Choo choo. I can move on if you want.
Yeah, I totally just my brain just went kaput.
Yeah. The last thing I'm going to say on the whole gaming front is just
that's what we were talking about. Dude, I don't know. I lost my train of thought. That's crazy.
Need to stop drinking first thing in the morning.
I know. I need to stop chugging a 12-pack. I mean, water every morning. I'm sorry. My bad.
No, in all seriousness, it happens to all of us. But as I was going to say, last on the gaming front, I really hope the voice actors don't end up striking. I mean, in the end, we, the fans, are the ones who suffer the most. And yet I stand with the strike. I think they should be paid fairly. I think all of the new platforms that are being released, that those people should be paid fairly. So I'm not even going to fight that. But I really want people to understand that we're the ones who end up suffering the most, because what ends up happening is when the strike is over, they get what they want. And the companies jack up the prices to recover all the lost revenue. So we still get hit. And it ends up becoming this vicious cycle where we end up being the one paying for it. And I really hope the voice actors don't leave the gaming community, because they are so ingrained. Like, you go to any convention and any of the voice actors who are from any major franchise game, they have lineup out the door of people coming to see them. It's part of who we are as gamers. Like that, when you see a character, you hear that voice in your head.
Yeah, well, and since I watch a lot of anime and stuff, I've been switching over the Japanese sometimes, and like the Final Fantasy game, just some of the like basic RPG games, because sometimes the voice acting for those games can be best, but those are like games made overseas. We're talking more of like the USA made ones, like Street Fighter. No, I'm just kidding. I'm more worried for the more of the indie type games, because I know the major companies do still have a budget. It's just more of these lower companies that if it does happen, I don't know if these companies will be able to continue making games. They might have to go bankrupt, and that just it's unfortunate. And but we just live in a day and age where everyone just everyone deserves more. because they realize that they are worth more now. And
Yeah, fair is fair, as far as I'm concerned.
exactly.
The problem I have is the indie movie companies, like the indie movie studios and the indie gaming companies, are all okay paying fair wages. They're like, nope, we'll do it. So you do see some actors working, some writers working for the indie studios, the ones that aren't part of this big conglomerate of giant studios. The problem right now, switching gears a little bit, is Unity, which is one of the graphics engines that a lot of indie studios use to make games, particularly mobile games, is now planning on charging 20 cents an install to the developer. So if you design a free game and you have 1 million people install the game, well, now you owe Unity $200,000.
Oh, wow.
And so a lot of the indie developers are very quickly dropping their games. A lot of them are panicking about games. Some of them are trying to introduce something, because even though they get ad revenue, a lot of these games, because that's how free games work, you play ads and stuff like that, they don't earn enough to pay that kind of salary.
No, they're free games. And
so what a lot of studios are already, from what I've seen, and you can see the whole argument online. I'm not going to go rehash everything that all of us are seeing, but what a lot of developers are planning on doing now, they're going to the Unreal Engine, which is free, right? Free. And if they don't have the technical prowess, or if they don't want their games to be that big, because the Unreal Engine is meant for 3D graphics, like it's. They're also using the Roblox engine. Oh. Now the Roblox engine, I don't know how that works logistically, but I have seen a couple of games that are rendered in the Roblox engine that look better than like your Call of Duty and stuff. It's not like Minecraft blocky stuff. So the engine is capable of doing quite a lot. I don't know how all that works. I'm not a coder. I'm not a developer. I'm not a programmer, nothing. But I've seen some games that are in Roblox that make a lot of AAA games look like shit in comparison. And that's from the Roblox engine, which I was like, oh, it's a ripoff Minecraft. Is it though?
Is it though?
Exactly. So it's kind of neat seeing the space grow, but at some point, these big companies are going to realize that it's particularly the indie part of the industry won't stand, and they will find a way of doing without. That's the whole reason for open source software. If I'm using paid software and you can't afford it, I say, okay, well, say open source alternative to whatever program. And I guarantee you there's 5, 10, 15 different programs that do it. Right. So there are ways to do things, and there are ways of working around, but the professional software is what everyone wants to use. Like if you're an animator and you don't want to use Maya, I really want to wonder why. Right? Maya is probably the best animation program that I've ever heard of for digital artists and animators. I mean, is there something better out there? Maybe. I don't know. Again, I'm not an animator. But my point is that if Maya said, oh, well, if you make a 10-minute movie and you sell it for $1, we're going to take 20% of that every time your movie is watched. And you get some kid who's watching the movie on repeat, which happens, right? All of a sudden that kid has just cost you, $300. What about every other person watching the movie, right? So there's got to be a breaking point, and there's enough money out there for everybody. So anyway, we're getting off the fun stuff. Let's go back into the fun things. Let's do you want to jump into anime, or do you want to jump into movies and TV?
Yeah, I don't really have much on the anime side. Not much has happened in the anime side. What was it called? Blue Exorcist trailer got released. It's coming back. Solo Leveling got another trailer and release date, I think.
Spy Family, Shield Hero.
Spy Family and Shield Hero just got announced for new seasons. And then, there was one more bit. Burn the Witch Anime has been announced. I think they're going to continue on from the movie they made or the 3 episodes they dropped a little while ago. That got announced this morning, I think. Actually, if you're watching this episode, it's the 16th of September when it got announced. So that way you guys know what day. And there hasn't been much. I mean, there was this little controversy that we would have to take a full little podcast on that from Jobless Reincarnation, what the author said. If you are interested in finding that out, you can go watch one of my recent podcasts. We can talk about it on here too, because it is a conversation I think that is worth having with everyone, because the comments are kind of crazy. But we can definitely get into that for on a next episode.
Yeah, this week, a lot of people in our space and stuff that we follow have been saying a lot of really stupid things. Like you have the author whose name I cannot remember to save my life right now. There's a League of Legends player that is currently in hot water from the NA region.
God damn it.
Yeah, you look at these people and you go, what was going through your head when you said it? It's just, drives me bananas. So anyway, we're not going to get into that. That is another podcast for another day. If you guys want us to do like a serious deep dive into these controversies of these people who just seem to think with their ass instead of their brain, let us know. I do try to keep this lighthearted, but both Kimmer and I are very good at being opinionated and in depth in our conversations. If you want to.
Yes, we are.
So we are talking anime. Let's swap over to movies and let's talk about the One Piece live action.
Yes. Yes.
I didn't tell him that we were going to talk about this.
Yes, I'm so happy you brought this. I've been wanting to talk about this.
So you don't get to talk about it.
Damn it.
Just kidding. Now, I have given you a lot of flack since we started this about One Piece being shit and all that crap.
Which is fair.
I have openly said I actually don't know, because I've only watched a couple of episodes. Wasn't for me. Whatever.
Which is fine.
So when I watch something that is an adaptation, doesn't matter if it's from a book, a manga, whatever, if it's a cartoon to live action or vice versa, I always go in with a clear mind of this is not the original. My most famous example is the Sword of Truth series by Terry Brooks. It ran for a couple seasons. Fantastic book series. Except for the ending, he got into a fight with the publisher and then just ruined his story so he could get out of his contract, and then got back into it and tried to fix everything. And so the first 7-8 books are really good. The rest of them are all kind of, if you just want to know what he was thinking when he was angry, you can just leave it at that. Because he was locked in a contract and they tried to tell him what to do with his characters. It's one of those kinds of things. Right. But the TV series was a little bit different. And of course the casting had to be different. And the casting was phenomenal. But I had a friend tell me that, the bad guy doesn't look and sound like the bad guy. And I said, you're right. I said, but the way they've done it and the way he acts, and it's Craig Parker for anyone who wants to look up. He was in like Lord of the Rings and stuff. Fantastic actor. He plays a super good bad guy. He doesn't look the part because the descriptor of the character is completely different to what he looks like. But he is so good at what he does. I approve of the change. So for me, I see it as an inspired by rather than a direct translation. Right. And I loved the series. A friend of mine who read the book, she hated it. She's like, no, it's so bad. And I was like, no, you can't do these things in the book. It's just not transferable. You can't do those, especially with the TV. They don't have the budget the same way that a movie might. And so she went back and she watched it. She's like, oh my God, this is so good. And I'm like, see? So I went into Dragon Ball Evolution with that mindset. It looked like shit. It was.
It was trash.
I went into Death Note. Same thing. Death Note had one good thing for it, and that was Willem Dafoe. And that's just because he actually sounds like what I think Ryuk would sound like. But all the other actors in the show, I refer to as the CW school of acting, where they looked pretty and have taken one acting class and don't know how to act.
They suck.
The CW is the worst for having shows with no actors on it.
Worst network. One of the worst networks.
So, having that in mind, I went into One Piece. My wife said, "Do you want to watch it?" I said, "Let's watch the first episode."
Yes.
It's an hour long. Sat down and watched it. Now, the first episode, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. So that merits a second episode. Right? Now, I know a lot of people were complaining Nami doesn't have big enough boobs and all this kind of crap. The thing I liked about the One Piece live action, is it fantastic? No. Is it good? Yes. Does it deserve more? Yes. That's my take on it. What I like about it is they took somebody like Nami, and I'm going to use her as an example because she's the most controversial, which sorry guys, women aren't built like anime characters.
Nope.
Unless you have excessive plastic surgery, or in a very rare exception, you won the genetic lottery and you can act. Because I've seen women who look like anime characters, but they sound like there's 2 IQ. And then you actually get an actress who knows how to act like she does. It works. But they toned down her goofballness from the anime to suit the actress playing the part. She's not as, I don't want to say bubbly, but she's not as hyper energy. And I like that because then it comes across as more relatable, because doing that live action is exactly what was the problem with Death Note. It was overacting. It was too much. Now Luffy, the guy who plays him, yes, he's overacting, but because that's Luffy's character.
100%.
And being an actual Latin American, because he's from Mexico, if I remember correctly, they are very used to hooting and hollering like that. So for the average Caucasian, that seems a little weird, but it's very on brand. And the author said that if Luffy was from anywhere in the world, he'd be from Brazil, because he's a huge soccer fan. So while he's not Portuguese and the actor is not from Brazil, they got somebody who has an accent, who is about as close as you can to looking the part. The only thing I wish they had done is darken the scar on his eye.
That's what I was going to say. I wish they would have darkened the scar just a little bit.
And then my wife and I were both looking at God, why can't I think of his name? I just finished watching this the other day. His mentor pirate, Shanks. We both agreed that you couldn't find somebody who looks like Shanks to play the live action Shanks.
No, you can't.
So you had to get somebody who had the right vibe. And while he has the right vibe for the live action, if you look at Shanks in the anime, that kind of aura and build does not translate into live action. So they didn't try. So the changes that they did, I agree with, that I'm aware of. Garp is probably the best change in the whole series. Because we all, like, anybody who's seen pictures of One Piece, you've seen what Garp looks like. Right? You're never going to fucking recreate that. Just never. You know, it's like Usopp having the large nose. They found somebody who has a large nose, but not so comically large it looks like you could fucking climb on it.
Right. And there's no way to CGI on it completely the entire time. It would just look weird.
And a prosthetic would be falling off all the time. And it would be like, so yeah, there are a lot of changes that they had to make. But Garp was the best change for me. Because not only does they move him from looking ridiculous to looking incredibly refined. And not villainous, but just villainous enough to be who he needs to be. Right? The only character that was over the top that was fucking perfect, fucking mint, was Mihawk.
Mihawk was awesome. I loved Mihawk.
He became my favorite character of the series, and he was in it probably the least.
Yeah, no, he did a really good job. I really like how they portrayed, like, all the lines you were saying almost matched up perfectly. The scenes almost matched up perfectly for the most part in the anime to the live action.
Yep.
I will say I did like the Garp design and stuff like that, but I didn't like how much they used him compared to anime and manga. I think
Yep.
with in my opinion, they I think force Garp into the story too early. I think if they would have just kept them a little bit more of a mystery, because obviously in the if you haven't watched the live action, I'm not going to spoil it, but you know, Garp you comes in later and you find out who Garp is later in the anime compared to in the live action series. And I wasn't like opposed to it, but at the same time I was like, this just feels kind of rushed. Like you definitely could have gone without it. Definitely could have. It didn't seem right in the anime because there was something else going on from the anime and manga.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, I really liked the live action. I really think it translated well, and it got announced for a season 2. It got renewed for season 2 by Netflix. Yep. And so I'm excited to see how it goes. And even my roommates I sat down and watched it with, they've never watched a single episode of One Piece, and they loved the entire series as just regular fans. And I liked it, but I definitely have some complaints.
Yeah, and the One Piece fan base, like the hardcore people like yourself, have a lot of those concerns. And I was talking with another friend of mine he makes you look like a casual in terms of his One Piece affection.
Oh, most definitely.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I brought up the same Garp thing," and all I said to him was, "They're trying to make it appeal to the masses, and you need a linchpin for Luffy being followed by the Marines. So in order to do that, they needed to rework it in a way that's relatable to the audience, in a way that is in a short 8-episode span." Mm-hmm. You cannot, like, they've proven this before when you take, like, I'm going to use Akira as an example. It's a 6-volume manga. They're like this big. They're like fucking 800 pages. Mm-hmm. Into a 2-hour movie. Right? The movie itself is fantastic. And every time I watch it, I'm always catching something new. And I've seen it probably 20, 30 times over the last 30 years.
Right.
But when you try to condense it like that, you end up missing out on the soul of the series. And one of the things that I was very impressed with One Piece, I know the story is different. I know a lot of it's condensed, some of it's taken out, some characters introduced earlier or later, depending on where they are. Mm-hmm. But I think what they're trying to do is get the best of One Piece in the time that they have without making it feel like they need the extra content. I was going to say filler, but it's not filler. To make a cohesive story. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that a lot of people forget when you watch a movie that's 2 hours based on a 400-page book. Right? It's very hard to make that story work in that time frame. So you literally have to cut out stuff and you have to rework stuff. The impressive part is that Oda was able to force them to do reshoots to make it look right.
In which I appreciate a lot, actually.
And I think that's one of the reasons why it worked, because no one knows the soul of the story better than the guy who created it. Now, when they consult, that's when you have a problem, because they're like, "Oh, I think we should do this. Okay, we'll take that under advisement." When you give the creator control like that, like, no, if you're going to bring in Garp earlier, you need to do it this way because this is the reason why, because this is how it's going to happen, because this is why it needs to do this so we can get to here.
Right.
Right? As opposed to, I think you should bring in Garp earlier, and them going, "Fuck you talking about? We're going to make 1,000 episodes of live action One Piece." Like hell you are. These actors can't do 1,000 episodes.
No.
Right? So, and I will also give them props for their casting. They hired actors who are older than their characters to not have that aging problem that you have, right? Mm-hmm. So the lady who plays Nami, she's 30.
Emily Rudd.
Yeah. She's not 21, she's not 19. She's looking
good for 30. Sorry, my bad.
10 years younger than I am here.
My bad.
But the thing is they have all of their characters are people who, barring, an accident or an eating disorder, should not age or change for the entirety of the production of the series. So the same thing they did with Game of Thrones. Now, obviously, Daenerys was supposed to be 14 when Game of Thrones starts. You are not having a 14-year-old in that, like, just not happening.
No. Nope.
So they made it so that she's like 18, 19, I think, in the beginning of the TV series, even though the actress, Amelia Clark, was not 18, 19
No,
at
she
the
was
time.
like, I think
22?
she was like 22, 23 around this
Something
time.
like that, yeah. But when you do that, it means that the character looks the same through the series. Unless you are planning on having like if they were to do a Mushoku Tensei live action, they would have to have a kid to do the time jumps.
They would have to.
Now I know there's all the controversy. We're not going to talk about that, but I do like the fact that a lot of these studios now are trying to realize that solid fan bases are the key to profit. And they are now realizing that us nerds, us geeks, us gamers are a solid fan base. You give us what you want, we'll give you money. The problem then becomes, as is with Star Wars, it becomes too saturated. As is with Marvel, it becomes too saturated. The best things don't get adapted. Actors come and go, and now you have to replace the actor, but you don't want that one. You want a new one, and or you want the old one, or like all these things. And it becomes way too much of a hassle. Now, fortunately, that's generally not the case with animation. But when you saturate something too much, like if One Piece is successful, what are they going to start doing? Hunter x Hunter, Black Clover, try Dragon Ball again. Like,
Probably.
There's a certain line. And one of the things that I think Kenshin proved the point is if it translates to live action, there's no reason you can't do it. But you have to put in the care and time. So they had to find an actor who could pull off Kenshin's dual personality while simultaneously making it good enough for live action, because it is a shoujo anime, or shonen anime rather, with a lot of weird, wacky quirks in it that you could not translate to live action. So he doesn't disappear and reappear and all that kind of stuff because he's so fast. But on screen, he is moving faster than everyone else. And Kenshin's thing is his speed. So when you watch the trilogy of movies, which you should do, by the way, the live action Kenshin movies are just, they're fantastic. Probably the best live adaptation to a shonen anime. Because you can do lots of slice of life drama stuff. Like there's tons of out there that are really good. I prefer Hanayori Dango, is probably one of my favorites. That's Boys Over Flowers, about a bunch of rich guys in a rich school and a commoner girl who's there because she's really smart and her parents sacrificed to afford to send her there and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really good TV series. A little wonky towards the end, but whatever. But when it comes to animating stretchy arms and, what was the guy that is voiced by the guy by Sayu? He's like a mucus character from One Piece.
It's
like squish fruit or something. I forget. There's the devil fruit that he's basically a disgusting mucus man.
he's in like a law, like he's
Sayu, I was watching a video last night. Sayu said he's like episode 800.
Yeah, it's deep into the anime. Yeah, that's why I was like, yeah, I know exactly. He's Doflamingo's right-hand man or whatever, I think. Yeah, but he's deep in the anime. I know who you're talking about.
But that's the thing, though, is if the live action gets to that arc where he's introduced, do you think he could be introduced in such a way that would do him justice? Or do you think they'd have to completely retcon the character to make it available for live action if they did it?
I think they would be able to pull him off pretty easily, in my opinion. And only reason why I say that is because I've seen like Scooby-Doo's live actions, and it's kind of just like slime in a way, you know what I mean? And it's like if you can just make a consistency of slime but just a different color, it should be pretty easy to translate with him.
Well,
The one I'm worried about is this season 2 and their next main crew. And I'm not gonna obviously, if you watch the live action trailer, or not live action trailer, but if you watch the announcement, he announces that their crew's gonna get a doctor. Yep. And he draws it out. I'm scared. I don't know what they're gonna do for this character design, because it's a reindeer. It's a reindeer human.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, though, is if they can do that for Chronicles of Narnia 20 years ago.
Yeah, but I don't know.
I understand what you're saying. My point is one of the things that impressed me about this live action is the practical effects that they use to make it look real, as opposed to being so obviously CGI it looks fake on top of the film.
Right.
You know, that's one of the things that Game of Thrones did really well. You know, like the dragons looked proper. I'm sure the actors probably laughed so much at the tennis ball sticks and all that crap, but
yeah, probably.
But on screen it looked good. But if you go back to like the early days of CG, like Flubber, right, which is the Robin Williams movie based on oh god, I don't even remember the original Disney movie. That'll come to me. But you look at that, it was so terrible on screen because they look separated and it looks ridiculously fake. If you're going to use CGI, it has to look like it belongs there. And unfortunately, that costs a fuck ton of money because the processing power required is just ridiculous. One Piece did a really good job because a lot of what they did was practical effects, which will always look better on screen.
Always look better.
Excuse me. And so if they're going to do a reindeer person, I'm sure they're going to find some makeup artist who'll find some way of using coffee grounds of making it look like, you know, whatever. I'm sure there are people out there, and there are a lot of very, very talented artists out there. So I'm not too worried about it, especially with how much money Netflix dropped on this series.
Well, and I'm not trying to disrespect a certain community, but I feel like if they're gonna have to get anyone, it's going to have to be someone very small, because he in the thing, he's not a very tall character, but he has different forms, I should say. And so I don't. It might be a full CGI character where they have someone running, like in Marvel, how they have someone running around as Raccoon or whatever. They have someone running around like him. But I don't know, because then if he goes into his different forms, and I don't know how they're going to translate the person, because he has bigger forms, smaller forms, like different shape. Like it's just weird, you know?
And ironically enough, he was kind of and I know who you're talking about, but he was kind of the character that I was hoping they weren't going to bring in, because I don't think that it will translate very well to live action.
And it sucks because he's he has to be there.
He's a very pivotal character. That'd be like taking Sakura out of Naruto.
100%. Which wouldn't be right.
Yeah. Like, everyone complains about how useless Sakura is. Well, she was essentially a princess who just wanted to be a ninja. She had a cushy life. She just wanted to do this, wanted to do that, right? So she didn't have the struggles to be a competitive fighter because her genius made everything easy for her.
Exactly.
Right. So and yet by the end of the series, she's such a huge linchpin that people miss it because they hate her so much.
Yeah. And like, that's why I try to explain to people. I'm like, she literally saved Naruto's life at the end of the anime. Like, if it wasn't for her, he'd be dead, completely dead. She literally cut into him and literally went inside him. Pause. Literally went inside him and started squeezing his heart and kept it pumping so he could literally stay alive. How is that useless, you guys? Sorry, I didn't mean to do that little rant, but how the fuck is that useless?
My only argument to that would be it's useless because he lived, because then Boruto was born.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. if we're talking about Boruto anime, fair. If we're talking Boruto manga, I don't know. The manga is tough. I
I
really like the manga. The fucking anime does not do Boruto justice, and I hate it because in the manga, Boruto is a savage. Like he's still a little bitch, but he's a savage.
I just get tired of the spin-off protagonists literally being a shadow of the prior generation. And this is one of the reasons why Dragon Ball went back to Goku when it was clear that Gohan was going to be the successor. There's the whole petition, make Gohan great again, because Gohan was an established character who then got ruined because the fan base couldn't accept him. So then when they did the time jump and he grew up, you missed those adventures that you had with Goku. And so he was no longer relatable. And then they've made him relatable. And whether you like Dragon Ball Super or not, they've done Gohan really well because now he's actually trying to juggle being the nice scholar and the most potential fighter on the face of the planet.
Seriously.
And they've done a lot of growth with that. The whole power scaling thing is a joke. We all know this. It's Dragon Ball. All that shit. Fine. You hate on Super, hate on Super. I quite like Super. But that's because I like the fact that Beerus and Whis are so much stronger than Goku that he can't surpass them until Toriyama went and fucked with the manga. So I'm ignoring that.
Right.
But going back to One Piece, the live action was good. And as somebody who has never really cared for One Piece, it's never been my cup of tea. I'm not a big fan of pirates in general. Like when the Pirates of the Caribbean movies were coming out, I watched them. It's kind of my take on it. But the whole pop culture revival of all of these shows seems to be the only fresh air we're getting from all the reboots and rehashes. Was it Henry Cavill is slated to do a Highlander movie that they're hoping is going to start a new Highlander franchise. He's also in talks to do a Warhammer movie. And I love Henry Cavill. He does everything that he's in justice, even if the writing is shit.
Yeah, that's true.
The man is a phenomenal actor. He's actually younger than me, which I find kind of scary.
That is kind of interesting.
He's about a year younger than I am, I think. But when it's coming to all these rehashes and all these things, if it's not done right, stop. Do what Marvel did. Don't say you're going to start a franchise. Build a movie that people love and use it as a launch pad from there. Don't go in saying this is going to be a franchise. Go in there with Easter eggs that you can then tie into as a fully fleshed idea when you have it. That's why the Tom Cruise Mummy reboot fucked up. Is because they went in there going, we're going to build a monster movie franchise. Did you work on the story? Is the movie if you look at the good Marvel movies as individual movies, you can sit and watch them. You don't need to know anything about anything else.
No, not
the
really.
only one you need to do is the Infinity War, which is 2 parts. Everything else you can sit and watch as a 2-hour superhero movie. You look at the DC stuff and they're trying to tie things in and fucking around with the storyline, and everyone's like, oh, the Snyder Cut is so good. I'm like, it's easier to see the characters in it because it's not super dark. More story, okay. Is the writing still terrible? Yes.
Yeah, it was the same movie, just had a few extra scenes.
Well, no, it was 40 minutes longer.
Yeah, it still sucked.
I mean, it did. It's definitely better than the original release, for sure it is. But that's not hard.
That's fair. No.
So it's, I don't know. I don't understand. When it comes to live actions, I mean, Akira and Robotech, or Macross for true anime fans, have been in talks for live action releases for, let's see here. I heard of the live action Robotech after the Shadow Chronicles came out, which would have been 20 years ago. And nothing has ever been done with that, which I think would be a great sci-fi series to do. I don't know if you've ever watched Robotech / Macross.
I have not.
It's an 80s anime, classic mecha anime. It's a giant right up there with Gundam, except Harmony Gold has been fucking around so much that randomly you'll get some new content and then nothing for like 10 years. And then they'll be like, oh, here's a movie, and then nothing. And then here's another side story that has nothing to do with what you already know. Like, what are you guys doing? Gundam done right, I think would be really good. But I think it would be more like One Piece, where it'd be better to adapt into a live action series. Because Gundam is very political. And then if you get Akira, which they're planning on doing a live action, last I heard about it was probably around 20 years ago. Morgan Freeman was going to be the general, and people were complaining about that. I'm like, if you look at the general in the movie and you look at the general in the manga, Morgan Freeman's not a bad choice. And if you read the manga, the Akira project is not just Japan. It's in Japan, but there are more military and government officials from around the world involved in this. So does Tetsuo and Kaneda need to be Japanese? 100%. Do the military personnel? No.
No.
Does not matter. So, but the problem is that it is such a visual delight that it would be really, really hard to do. And I think
some anime just can't get translated to live action. And I'm sorry to cut you off there, but
no, you're absolutely right. And I love cyberpunk stuff, and cyberpunk, the game and the anime, they kind of did justice of showing that you can do it now. I don't know if Akira could be done, but you could definitely do like Bubblegum Crisis and Bubblegum Crash. Another cyberpunk anime, and then there's Bubblegum Crisis 2040, which came out in the 90s. Fantastic series. Completely different animation and characters from the original. I prefer the original. But you could definitely do it. So I'm hoping that if there are any more live adaptations coming down the rabbit hole, as it were, that they're taking a look at One Piece as a really good case study of, if you have to change the original content to appease both the existing fans and introduce it to new fans, I think they found a really good balance.
I think they did 100%. And I the reason why I say that is because like my roommates loved it. You know, they've watched it. I don't know if they're gonna watch the anime. I don't know. I really haven't asked them to, because I kind of don't want them to, in a way. But it's bringing a lot of new fans from what I've seen, and it's kind of crazy. And I know I say this but I really think that One Piece might be one of the greatest fictions written of all time. Like, it's just been successful on all three levels now, and with a live action, anime, and manga. Like I don't want to say it's dominating, but it's doing better than any other fiction series ever, in my opinion. Like, and I think social media has a big role in that, because of how far the internet has came and stuff like that, for sure. But there's just so much wavelength around it right now that it just might be. I don't know.
And to be fair, like from a marketing perspective, for those of you who don't know, I'm a social media web marketing specialist, and the characters are unique enough, similar to, Iron Man, to Spider-Man, where you see the art style, you know exactly what it is. And I was watching a video about One Piece with my wife the other day, and One Piece is in the top 10 of best-selling fiction literature of all time. That's globally. That's not just Japan. It's globally. And he has sold, I think they said something like 235 million copies of One Piece. So, I mean, there's definitely something there. But that, again, that's something that appeals to people. Like, if you like or hate Demon Slayer and don't understand why it's popular, it's because it's relatable. If you like or hate Spider-Man, it's because it's relatable. All of us were that awkward teen at some point. All of us wanted to be a hero. All of us wanted to get the girl. All of us knew how bad we felt when we didn't. Right? And it's not even a gender thing. It's literally just relatable content, you know? And the best content that's out there is stuff that appeals to people because it's either unique or it's relatable. One of the reasons why the Bible is still in print for over 2,000 years is because it relates to people trying to find their inner self-worth, whether you're a Christian or not. It's the same with any major religion or any book. But the two most printed books in the world are the Bible, and the one book that has surpassed it in terms of how many copies of the printing is the IKEA catalog, which is kind of funny.
That is kind of funny.
But the thing is IKEA has furniture that is accessible, affordable, good, and looks nice.
Yes.
Right? So why not?
Right.
But it's the same thing with any medium. Like, why was Game of Thrones so popular? If you look at it from outside the mirror of, oh my God, Game of Thrones is so awesome. It was super political. There was so many characters. You know, half the time you couldn't remember their names between seasons.
Right.
You're like, oh, who the fuck is this character? What's their name again? And then they're like, oh, they're distracting you, like, because the honest trailer just says like, oh, we'll distract you by any boobs necessary, you know, and they throw in a nudity scene and stuff like that.
Right.
And I remember somebody complaining, why is there so much nudity in there? And I'm like, they don't have anything to do. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, they don't live in an age of cell phones, right? Reading, a lot of them don't read. They're mostly peasants watching the nobles squabble.
Exactly.
So you grow food and build a family. How do you build a family? Lots of sex.
Lots of it.
That's literally all you can do. Oh, okay, I get it.
All you can do.
But when you zoom out, why was Game of Thrones so popular? Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, it looked beautiful. Number two, it was unique for the time that it came out, because everybody had seen Lord of the Rings, but this was Lord of the Rings with like in-depth interwoven world building.
Right.
Which all of us can thank Tolkien for in any fantasy series.
Thank you.
Again, the actors were incredible. I mean, they had Sean Bean in the first season. Like, the man is like, the actors in that series are just fucking phenomenal. Except for Ed Sheeran. I still don't understand how he got a part in that, but whatever. But he's not an actor. And it's okay he's not an actor. It's just whatever. And again, they built it on the cliffhanger premise, which I didn't mind so much at first, but it got really tedious. And when it was consuming all of our lives and everybody was theory crafting between seasons and all this stuff, I got to the point where I'm just like, I can't fucking do this anymore. And I started like unfollowing and hiding all the pages that would talk about all the Game of Thrones. Like, you missed this minute detail in episode 3 at minute 1.2 seconds. It's like, fuck, just drives me bananas. I'm like, I want to be entertained, but I don't want to be consumed. And that's the difference between me and a lot of other nerd geek culture people, is I don't have a series or a franchise that is all encompassing to me. I'm a lover of what I like. Right? So I like video games, but I don't like sports video games. But there are some sports video games I like. You know, for me, I think the closest I ever got was probably Final Fantasy in terms of being all encompassing. And then Squaresoft went off the rails and stopped writing good stories and just stayed with good graphics. And now they're slowly getting back to that, which, call back to a previous episode if you want to go watch our Final Fantasy discussion. So it really comes down to, can you tell a good story? Can you make it relatable? And then can you keep the fans engaged? And while I will openly admit I have seen all of Game of Thrones now, but I stopped watching it when they were coming out long time ago. I think I stopped before Red Wedding in season 3.
Oh, damn.
So yeah, it's I couldn't do it anymore. It's just like it's too much.
That's fair though.
But that's the same reason why people watch soap operas, right? They get invested, they get into the drama, they want to know what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
So that is definitely the appeal. But if it's not done right, no one's going to watch.
No.
And I genuinely think, One Piece and a lot of these adaptations are going to start getting better, particularly now. Like once the strike is over, and I do believe it's going to end. I don't know when, obviously, but I genuinely think the writers who aren't good writers are going to slowly be pushed out of Hollywood because these companies who have been holding out are going to be like, no, I only want the best writers.
Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, the writers should be paid what they're worth, and I stand by them.
I stand by them too.
But not all writers are good writers.
Not all writers are good writers. Exactly. Some of them are ass.
Well, not only that too. I mean, some of them are writers for the sake of writing, but they might be a really good sci-fi writer, but then all of a sudden they're writing for a soap opera. Does it translate? I'm not a writer. I don't know. I'm sure there are some skills, but the way of thinking changes. It's one of the reasons why I hate when directors are like, oh, this director is so hailed because he's so good. As soon as he steps out of a different genre, a different comfort zone, it's like, this is crap. This director just produced crap.
Right.
Right. And so, it's one of those things. We all have our own little personal opinions, yada, yada, but something done right definitely feels good, but you have to appeal to the fan base. And it's like, as a marketer, the best example I have of this, and this is a geek culture movie, and has a very, very good cult following, is Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which I cannot wait for the animated series. That looks so good. The fact that they got all of the original movie cast to come do the voices for it just makes me so happy.
It's going to be good.
But it was marketed so poorly that there was very limited marketing. The trailer didn't even give you a sense of what the movie was about. Critics 100% did not understand it. And so only fans of the original comic went to go see it, and it bombed. And yet when you go watch it, it's a fantastic movie. It's one of my favorite movies. There are so many callbacks and throwbacks and Easter eggs and neat little things in the movie. The actors all feel like the characters from the comic. It was introduced to me by a friend. Shout out Aaron if you're watching this. And he introduced to me when I was working restaurants, and I didn't have a chance to see it in the theater because my town theater didn't pick it up. And I couldn't get into the city to go see it because I was also working an insane amount at the time.
Right.
But as soon as I saw it, I was like, holy shit, this is fucking awesome. And I hate when things that end up becoming a cult following because people realize that the movies are good and should have supported it from the beginning don't get noticed because somebody's like, oh, no one's going to watch this, or this is a really good trailer, but does it describe the movie without giving it away? And that's the other thing, is they have a terrible, terrible habit of giving you the entire plot in a 30-second trailer so you know what the movie's already about and how it's going to end. Or if it's a comedy, giving you all the best jokes in the trailer, leaving nothing for the movie, and you're like, oh, I already know the 2 best jokes in this movie. The rest of the movie's not funny. Right?
Right.
So you need to find that balance, and to make things look good. Like Game of Thrones did an excellent job of marketing because they said, rated R Lord of the Rings. Then they released the first 15 minutes of the first episode. And they ended it right at a spot where you're like, I need to know what's going on. They showed, some of the trailer and the intrigue and the story without giving anything away. And I think that was done right. Now, granted, it is HBO, so everyone expects super high quality from them.
Right.
But they also don't or can't advertise on main TV for a lot of reasons because their shows are generally like R-rated and stuff like that.
R-rated and graphic.
But I remember watching TV ads for The Sopranos, right? When that was huge. Right. So it can be done, and it can be done tastefully. But quality over quantity, guys.
I prefer that too.
If you're a studio and you're investing in a show and then you don't promote it, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
and I know right now a lot of the promotion it can't be done just because of the strike and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But back in the past, definitely. Like if you're not promoting anything, you're not going to make any money.
Exactly.
So
Now, do we have any topics that we want to set up for next time? Do you have any big projects?
I am currently in the process of making some epoxy resin tables and signs. And I will be sending you some pictures once I get them complete. I gotta go get a few more parts. I gotta go get like some legs for the tables, and then I gotta go get some more epoxy. But I'll send you a thing that I'm gonna try to make a little side hobby out of it. And so if you guys are interested in making custom ones, if they end up good, I will probably be opening a commission for custom designed ones. If you guys wanted some custom like anime ones or pop culture ones or whatever you guys want, name or anything, if you want like a wall one or a table, there'll be different prices for each one, obviously.
Blackstone behind me in epoxy.
Exactly. See if we can get that. Other than that, I was going to say if you we have a few topics that I was thinking about that I'll talk to you personally when we off the podcast, just so we can get some defined ones. But yeah, that's the only thing I have as a little side job hobby. Hopefully these tables and signs turn out great, and then hopefully I can start making them for you guys because it's hopefully turns out really good.
Well, knowing the perfectionist you are, they're probably going to turn out pretty sweet.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I'll make sure to send you them as soon as I get them done.
Oh no, that's fine. I know you're going to get them done when you get them done. On that note, we are going to peace out, and we'll catch you next week. I know this was kind of an impromptu podcast. We did very much wing this one. I have no notes on this podcast whatsoever.
Not a single note pulled up. Not gonna lie.
But that's us just having fun, and that's kind of what we want this podcast to be. So